Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Excuse me. My name is Leslie Nobile. I work for Erin. I'm going to co-present today with Tina Morris. She actually works for Amazon, but she is representing Erin's Advisory Council, and that is the body elected to facilitate the policy process in the Erin region. So we're going to talk about Whois data accuracy and the importance of Whois data accuracy, and really what it means to you all as a network operator community. What are some of the repercussions for inaccurate data? I'm going to present some statistics and sort of a variety of information. So there's lots in here. We'll try to move quickly. So just a quick mention of Erin. Some people said that some of you may not know who Erin is and what we do, so I just put this quick slide up. We are one of 5 regional internet registries. On the right, you can see all 5 of them. Erin in the US, Canada, parts of the Caribbean and North Atlantic, LACNIC, AFRINIC, APNIC, and the RIPE NCC. So there are 5 in total. We are based in Chantilly, Virginia. We are a nonprofit corporation, like all 5 of the RIRs. We are 100% community funded. All of our fees are for registration services and not for number resources. Currently, we serve over 37,000 organizations, and these are organizations that have resources directly from Erin or from one of Erin's predecessor registries. Peter mentioned a couple of them, the InterNIC, the DoD NIC, and the SRI NIC. So our core services, there are 3. We do lots of things, but these are our 3 core services. We distribute and register unique internet number resources, IPv4, IPv6, and autonomous system numbers. We maintain an accurate Whois directory service that contains those internet number resources, so we run the registry for our region. And we facilitate and implement community-driven policy. The policies that Erin, that are current today are driven by the community, but implemented by the staff. So what information is included in Erin's Whois? So we have registration information about the internet number resources, the V4, V6, and autonomous system numbers. We have information about the organizations that hold those IP addresses and autonomous system numbers. We have points of contact, and we're going to mention that quite a bit in the presentation. So I'm just going to refer to it as POCs for the resources and for the organizations. There's 4 or 5 different types of POCs, but it can be the same POC for both the resource and the organization, or it can be different ones, it depends. We have customer reassignment information, lots and lots of customer reassignment information, and that's from ISPs to their downstream customers. We call those indirect resources, indirect records, whereas if you have resources directly from Erin, your direct registration. Customer reassignments are the indirect registrations. And then Whois has the original registration date as well as the last updated date. So if you were registered, if you got space in 1987, it'll show that in the Whois database. And then if you came in recently and updated your data, if you updated a POC record and put in a new phone number, the last updated date gets updated with that new date. But it always shows the original and then the last updated. We also have referential information. If you're looking for an IP address that happens to be in a different RIR's database, we'll have a pointer record to that RIR. And we have information about an ISP's Whois server. It's a referral Whois server. This is an option that ISPs have. Instead of putting their customer reassignment information into Erin's Whois, they can set up their own Whois server and put their customer reassignment information in there. So why is Whois accuracy important? One of the top reasons, so we threw out these 5, there's probably others, but one of the most important reasons is it contributes to overall internet operability and stability. You all as network operators use Whois probably on a daily basis to resolve technical issues, abuse issues. You're looking for a good point of contact to call or email. If it's not there, that can create some problems. It actually provides, accurate data provides protection from number resource hijacking. You heard, I think, Peter mention a little bit about hijacking. So hijackers are looking for the old, outdated records, the ones that were last updated in 1995. That's where they start the process of hijacking. They're looking for old records, legacy records, things that haven't been updated. They start the process of looking for expired domain names. They check routing. They check for businesses that are long gone, and then they come in and pretend to be that organization. They'll re-register the domain name. They'll even re-register the business name. They've gotten pretty good at it, but Aaron's staff is better. So we are really good at finding these things. Most of the hijacking is occurring around the transfer market now because of all the money that's involved in the V4 transfer market. Accurate data does enable resource transfers. In order to come into Aaron and do a transfer of resources, the resource, the point of contact, and the organization records have to be current and up to date. It has to be the rightful registrant, and staff is really good at vetting and verifying that information. So from a public safety perspective, this is a really important thing. Whois is often a first point in an investigation, in a criminal investigation used by law enforcement and consumer protection agencies. They have lots of other tools at their disposal, but it is a first stop for them. They're looking for a bad actor, hoping they can identify one, but mostly they're looking for the ISP who's closest to that bad actor so that they can serve process, send them a subpoena or a court order. And finally, it assists end users, all kinds of businesses, consumer groups, healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. They use Whois to combat abuse. They're looking for a good abuse point of contact when they're having network issues. So quickly, just looking at POC and org stats, I've got sort of stats interspersed throughout the presentation. There's currently almost 744,000 total registered points of contact in Aaron's database. And these are, this includes direct and indirect. That includes the downstream customer POCs as well as the direct POCs. And the interesting thing is about 323,000 of these, or 43% of all POCs, are orphaned. And what we mean by orphaned is they're not associated with any number resources at all. And the reason they're still sitting on our database is that a lot of times ISPs are putting information in advance. They register POCs, they register orgs in advance of actually issuing them a reassignment. And they either forget about them and never issue them the space, or they do issue them the space, but then they leave it sitting there for years, even when they've taken the space from an old customer and given it to a new customer. The old customer record just sits there. So there's a lot of customer reassignment bad data. And you'll see it sort of correlates with the orgs. We've got 754,000 registered org IDs, and about 40% of those are orphaned as well. So one of my projects is to work on Whois data quality and cleanup. And so we plan on doing some deletion of this erroneous data to improve the quality and integrity of Aaron's Whois. And we'll be putting out a community consultation really soon and asking, sort of presenting our ideas, how we plan on doing it, and looking for feedback from the community. So what are some of the possible reasons for the inaccurate data? I just mentioned one of the big ones. ISPs let old customer reassignment records sit there for a long time and they don't really clean them up. But looking at it from a historical perspective, Aaron inherited the Internet database in 1997. And I say the Internet database, but the Internet inherited it from the DoD NIC. The DoD NIC inherited it from the SRI NIC. So this data goes back to the 80s. None of it was verified when we were doing this early on. We weren't verifying organization information. We were just, verifying that someone needed IP resources. So it has unverified and potentially outdated information from way back. A lot of the legacy holders have gone out of business, but their records are still sitting in Whois in Aaron's database, as Peter mentioned. Most legacy holders have no contractual relationship with Aaron. In the early days, when number resources were issued by our predecessor registries, they were done so under U.S. government contract, and there was no requirement to sign a contract with the predecessor registries. So a lot of the legacy holders don't feel obligated to keep their records up to date. They have no relationship with Aaron, and they don't feel that they need to come in and update their records. And what we hear quite often is that some of them are hesitant to update their records. They know about Aaron, they know they're sitting in the Aaron database, but they fear that Aaron may revoke their resources or require them to sign a contract, and that's simply not true. We want and encourage people to come in and update their records, particularly the point of contact records. It is really important. It is protection from hijackings. So we do encourage that. Okay. Some organizations may no longer have a reason to interact with ARIN on a regular basis. We depleted our IPv4 free pool in September of 2015, so people aren't coming back for v4 very often. If they get one large IPv6 allocation, it's pretty likely they won't be coming back anytime soon. So they're not really interacting with us on a regular basis. Another thing we hear a lot is that people think it is very difficult to complete a merger and acquisition transfer. And admittedly, it is complicated, it is complex. We do ask for legal documentation. Sometimes with these old transfers that happened 10 years ago, it's really difficult for organizations to find that legal documentation. But we have made a concerted effort to make it work, to streamline the process. And honestly, within the past 5 or 6 years, our percentage rate for completion of these M&A transfers has gone up drastically. It's well over 80%. It used to be about 50%. So it is getting better. And finally, IPv4 space that's been hijacked or is being routed without authorization, it means that somebody's using it, but the person who's reflected in the Whois database is not the person using it. So that's another possible reason for inaccuracy. Okay, so potential implications of inaccurate data. There's a few. These were a few that we threw out there. There's probably more, again. But one of the first things, and we heard this from law enforcement as well, there's a lot of wasted network operator time responding to subpoenas that are misdirected. They're looking at Whois. The FBI is looking for a particular jurisdiction. They think that it belongs here. They send a subpoena to that organization, and in fact, it's not actually being used there, and it's an organization in a completely different state. So it wastes time on both network operators and on law enforcement. So it can cause a delayed resolution of a network operational and abuse issue. You're trying to track someone down, you're calling, you're getting the wrong number, or you're sending emails. It could even cause a lack of resolution of a network problem. It definitely causes an increase in attempted hijackings, as we've mentioned. They're looking for the inaccurate data, the stale data. And a problem, I mean, really for all of us, is there could be a perceived unreliability of the data in ARIN's Whois. So if you're trying to use Whois to resolve technical issues or abuse issues, and you find that you can't find the right person and you've tried repeatedly, you might stop using Whois. You might turn to an alternate source if there is one. And if you actually are a point of contact registered in ARIN's Whois, you might just stop updating it, thinking it's crap, that the database is useless. So that could definitely cause some issues. Okay, so what are we doing? So this just discusses what we're currently doing today, right now, to obtain and maintain accurate Whois. We are working continually on projects to obtain accurate Whois and to maintain it, but there's a lot of future work and a lot of ongoing work. I'm only going to discuss current work. So from a policy perspective, what we have defined in our number resource policy manual, there's sort of 3 policies that indirectly or directly affect Whois accuracy. The first one is the annual POC validation. Some of you who are registered in ARIN's Whois might be receiving these emails on an annual basis. Basically, we're just asking every single point of contact in the database to verify that their information is accurate, so that you will receive an email from us. Tina's going to talk about it in another slide a little bit later, so I won't go into it. We have reassignment requirements. As I mentioned, upstream ISPs need to put their customer reassignments into ARIN's Whois for both IPv4 and IPv6. And then we have the 3 transfer policies, the merger and acquisition, and then there's 2 IPv4 market-based transfers. One's called specified recipient, and one is inter-RAR. So one happens, it's basically transactions happening within the ARIN region or between ARIN and other RARs. So we have a couple of business practices we put in place. Actually, we put a lot of things in place really to protect resources, a lot of vetting and verification that goes on. Some people might call it jumping through hoops. We call it protecting your resources. All organizations have to be legally registered entities in the ARIN region in order to be registered in Whois and to receive resources, because we want to verify that you are who you say you are. Organizations requesting services or resources are vetted every 12 months. If you don't come back to Aaron for 2 years, we're not going to vet you. We don't have enough staff to actually proactively do that. But if you do come back to Aaron, we are going to vet you every 12 months. And then we only accept service and resource requests from registered points of contact that we can see and verify that exist in Whois. And from a contractual perspective, so Aaron has a registration services agreement that all parties sign when they get resources from Aaron. And there's two particular terms and conditions that deal with Whois accuracy. The first one is in 1C, and it says an organization getting resources must comply with all policies. And the second is 3B, and it says organizations getting space must provide and maintain accurate registration information in Whois for themselves and their customers. And the RSA also says that non-compliance with these terms and conditions could result in the termination of the RSA and revocation of resources. It's not something we do on an ongoing basis, just to throw it out there. Okay, so I mentioned the annual POC validation. So I want to just talk about who's validating, who's not. What do the stats look like for this? So I mentioned that we had about 744,000 total POCs registered in Aaron's database. 177,742 are validated. And by validated, I mean either they've responded to Aaron's annual Whois POC validation email, or they've gone directly into their account and updated their record themselves, which automatically validates them. A little over 243,000 are non-validated, and then again we see that orphaned number of almost 323,000 being orphaned, and those are the ones that we'll attempt to clean up later this year in a project. So this breaks it down even further. I mentioned direct POCs are those that have resources from Aaron. Indirect are the customer reassignments. So this looks at these two different categories. In purple, we've got about 51,000 total direct POCs registered, and 56% of those are validated. They've actually validated their information. 44% are unvalidated. When you look at the indirect POCs, those customer reassignments, the numbers are much lower, and they look very different, in fact. 22% out of the 693,000 roughly, 22% are validated. It's not very many. And 32% are unvalidated, and again, 46% are orphaned. So this looks at it from a slightly different perspective. This is actually looking at the networks, not at the POCs or the orgs, but it's looking at the networks. And it's comparing Aaron-issued networks to legacy networks. So in purple, we've got the Aaron-issued networks, and there's a little over 27,000 of them. So out of the 27,000, 93% have at least one validated POC, and 7% have no validated POC at all on the resource. And the green pie, about 25,000 total legacy networks. And if you'll notice, there's almost a 50-50 ratio there of Aaron-issued and legacy networks registered in the database. It's kind of interesting. But out of the total legacy networks, 47% of them have at least one validated POC, and 53% have no validated POC. And I actually don't think those numbers are terrible. I mean, they could be much, much better, but at least 47% of them have validated a POC. So the one note I have over to the side is when you're looking at the legacy networks with no validated POC, that 53%, there's over 345,000/24s contained in that space who have no validated POC, and those are going to be the primary targets of hijackers. So just want to throw that out there. I am now going to turn this over to Tina. I get to stop talking. Fantastic.
So my name is Tia Morris. I'm with the Aaron Advisory Council, and we're looking at different ways to review the processes we have in place today, as well as what we could do in the future. So today we have a policy where the Aaron staff emails every POC annually. They have 60 days to respond to that email to confirm that their information is correct. If they do not respond within that 60 days, if they do not respond within that 60 days, they're marked as an invalid POC. Also, the Aaron staff, if they deem a POC to be abandoned or otherwise illegitimate, they will make a POC invalid. Invalid POCs are prevented from making database updates. The only thing an invalid POC can do is validate their POC. So that tries to force them into getting more accurate data. To validate your POC, it's super easy. You can click the link in the email. You can reply to the email with the word correct. You can hit the validate button in your online account, or you can just simply update your POC and it will renew for the next year. Oops. Uh-oh, sorry. I didn't get the lesson. There you go. So currently, we have the annual POC validation by staff, and a lot of vetting and verification is done during the resource requests and transfer requests. What we're looking at doing is trying to increase that, and one option is a draft policy has been submitted, which adds a little more teeth to the current annual validation. Essentially, it's the same thing. Staff sends the email once a year, and if you do not respond and you're marked invalid, your records are removed from Whois, and the termination of reverse DNS services occurs. This is a pretty severe operational impact. This policy is still in the early stages. We would really encourage the operator community to participate in this process and let us know if it's too severe or just right, or if there's better ideas. Some other things we're looking at is possibly starting audits of registration records, doing a registration review annually or on some sort of interval that makes sense. At least one other RIR is doing that at this time. That would obviously be very labor intensive. There's also the possibility we could adjust the requirements on the reassignment records and direct allocations, which would create less, well, depending, we could adjust them up or down, but we could create less SWIPs and POCs by changing the requirements there. POC validation directly impacts network operators. It offers protection from hijacking. We really want community feedback on this. We want to make this more accurate and better for everybody. We want to know, how is this impacting you? What can we do to motivate you to update the stale records or reach out to others to get them updated? How could this process be improved while still protecting resources from being hijacked? Also, I wanted to point out that at every NANOG meeting, Erin has a help desk. They will sit down with you and walk through this with you anytime, look at your org, review every record, and help you out. Obviously, it's closed, being the end of the conference, so it's not very helpful right now, but next time. So I'd like to invite, if anybody has any questions, comments.
Kevin Locke with KTS. Can you go back to the slide for things causing or influencing bad data?
Let's see, I'm not sure. Potential, this one?
No, before, it was like 2 more slides before that. Possible reasons, yes.
Okay.
You really can't overstate the fear of relocation out there. And that's not just with legacy holders, that's with all address holders. Or the perceived difficulties in M&A transfers. I think there's a lot of records out there that have, especially the M&As, where they're afraid to even open a ticket with Aaron because of there was a Facebook meeting where someone photoshopped John Curran's face on a TSA agent with the putting on a rubber glove, and right or wrong, that really is the perception of how many, if not most, address holders perceive Aaron. So go forward 2 slides to the things you're doing to mitigate this. I don't see anything on there about marketing outreach. That's really
It's a great point.
Maybe there should be something in there about.
It's a great point.
Resources, that the policies have changed, and you might not
Yep.
know that.
Yep. That is, as I mentioned, things we're working on that are not in place and future projects. That is absolutely in our plans. We have just added Whois accuracy and POC validation, the importance of all of this, to our key messaging, and that is going to start being part of all of our outreach. We are making a concerted effort to let people know that it's very important. We want to work with you. We'll help you in any way we can. And the perception that Aaron is going to revoke space is completely false, and we're going to try to get that message out as often as we can. We just had a conversation in the hallway, and we were saying the only time we revoke space is for non-payment of registration fees. We really do not revoke space, and particularly during the course of a transfer. We are not going to revoke any space during the course of a transfer. Just doesn't happen. Okay.
So just very quickly, I'm going to close the microphones with the folks that are here, and I ask you to make your question prompt, and we'll get an answer, and that way everyone will get a chance to ask their question. I think, Michael, I don't know which was first, I'll go with you.
Yeah, Mike Santra, ESNet. Thanks for the presentation, Leslie and Tina. Just briefly, in one of the slides you mentioned that one of the proposals is if you don't update your POC, then you can take away reverse DNS, removal of resource record and termination of reverse DNS services. This proposal's come up in the past, and I think it's counterproductive because it's basically saying you are not obeying one method of documenting your resources, so we're going to take away the other method you have of documenting your resources and basically shoot the community in the foot because we don't have any method of documenting these resources now. I don't think that has any teeth, and I don't think it's going to be very effective. I do think that there are other ways to do it, and I think marketing outreach is a good one. And I would like to see these POCs get validated, but I just don't think reverse DNS is the way to do it.
Can I just ask you, Michael, if you have suggestions, we would like to hear them. The advisory council in particular would like to. So if you want to post on PPML, give us ideas.
Or also just reach out to us individually.
Matt Petak, Yahoo. Two points. One, really quickly, you seem to assume that validated, non-responsive, orphaned, or separate categories. I happen to represent a validated but orphaned POC, so do recognize that the totals there shouldn't add up to just 100. Second point, on the DNS reverse records, I'm with Michael on that. I would say if you're going to do that, don't remove them, but perhaps change it to something like, the reverse record dash, you haven't paid, please call us. Leave something in there so that if there are sites that are doing lack of reverse validation on things like email, you don't totally break the internet, but it does provide a really kind of big flashing sign that, hey, if you know these people, reach out and tell them to update their records. Thank you.
Good input. And again, can you please contribute that to PPML or to an AC member? Thanks.
Still center microphone.
Hi, Steve Powell from Level 3. If we encourage, let's say, the POC to be at least one member to be, let's say, and not a human, but like, for example, knock at something, would that, assist in your ability to get to, let's say, AOL type people? So because people change, but knocks and operational stats are always there.
The problem I've experienced with those POCs is they're almost the worst to get validated because they usually go to some big communal email and nobody ever pays attention to them. So in my particular experience, my previous employers and whatnot, I'm usually the one that has to go in and validate those. And so they're always ignored. But I do agree it's a good thought.
Yeah, having a role account is better than having nothing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Peter.
Hi, Peter Timish with Adrex. And again, immense amount of work. I really respect how much Leslie and Tina you put in this. But I've got one question back to if the POC isn't validated, you're then going to remove the resource from Whois. I thought orgs held resources and not POCs. So that linkage, I want to hear your opinion on how you link those since Adam, we even said only corporations can hold, not even individual now. So how do you rectify an org being harmed by a lack of a POC? You've linked the two now.
I would say the org doesn't have a single validated POC is the problem, and that's one of the requirements to have a valid org.
What I'm saying is you're linking it to the org is the one being harmed. I'm a POC for a company I leave, and I'm the only one who knew about it, and I've left the company 5 years ago, and you keep sending update records to my email address. No one else in the company knows. You've now linked my job to that company as being the org's loss. So I'm trying to figure out how the resources are linked to the person rather than the other way around. Yeah,
well, it's actually just a proposal right now, so if you have input, we'd love to hear that, because it is a consideration, so put it out there.
Eric Kumke with Knoll Communications. Regarding, I know this is probably for the PPML list as well, but removal of reverse records runs a big risk of breaking SMTP generally, because if reverse DNS doesn't map correctly for people's SMTP, those who haven't moved it to Office 365 or whatever, risks email not being delivered. So say a verification email is sent to the email POC for that ISP and they run all their own MX, then it becomes a chicken or egg problem of email not transiting to and from that SMTP server properly, because all sorts of spam filtering and other things no longer understand that it doesn't have reverse DNS anymore.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your attention. We
Thank you very
appreciate
much,
it.
Leslie, and